Welcome to Confessions of a Leader. I'm Ian Pascoe, the CEO and Managing Partner of Grant Thornton. In this podcast, I sit down with some of Thailand's most accomplished leaders to explore their journeys, the lessons they've learned, and their insights into leadership and transformation in today's world. My guest today is Dr Kosit Fuangswasdi, a leader with over 40 years of experience spanning the petroleum, digital economy, retail, and property industries. Dr Kosit is currently the chairman of Chang Green Energy plc, a director at Sea Oil plc, and managing director at KMAN Consult, while also advising several SET-listed companies. With expertise in strategy, governance, risk management, and organisational transformation, he has made a lasting impact across sectors and institutions in the ASEAN region. Dr Kosit, thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
It's fantastic to have you here.
Very nice to meet you today.
You've had a fascinating career over, 40 years, ranging from starting off in the petroleum industry, petroleum exploration, and more recently in digital strategy. What sort of personal values do you think you've lived by that has shaped your career?
Well, it's a very simple question, but very difficult answer. Okay,
Sure.
Started with the childhood. I had to struggle to survive, so that is very important factors. First one, you need to have a struggling power to survive, because that would lead you to survival throughout your career. But after I found out, after years of struggling, since my childhood in university or even my first few years of working, I would conclude that first importantly is you need to know where you're going. Okay, I think there is a word of life searching or soul searching. Many people were not that successful. I was lucky in a way because I struggled all the way, so I found out actually what I would like to go. You need to know where you're going first. Then maybe the second one is you need to have passion, because without passion you can give up along the way, right? The next one is being a person with integrity. You need to be ethical, because without ethical, you can be dropped along the way as well. And then I found out that in several times of my life, I need to be courageous. I need to be brave, because there were times that I need to make a jump and be ready for failures. But failures are good lessons. You can take profit from those failures. And then working in the real world, you need to have partners, you need to have followers, you need to have bosses and supervisors. So you need to be good with them. You need to be generous, and sometimes you need to be, you need to empathize people, to understand people. And last but not least, I think you need to have a fighting spirit, because without fighting spirit, you can lose the game. And not only that, but you're losing faith of your followers, your workers, your friends. So you need to do that. Another one I would say, after all these years, when working with people, you need to set the working environment, or what I call the culture, working culture, to fit with them as well, because otherwise you're losing people as well. So those are probably my summary.
Okay. Interesting. You talked about challenges and facing, if you like, adversity. Was there a particular moment in your life, you think, and you've started off as a temple boy, I recall. Was there a pivotal moment in life that there was a particular challenge that set you up for life, do you think?
Yes, as I mentioned, struggling to survive. When I was very young, grew up in a temple, I had to survive. I was different from other temple boys. Those are nearly all orphans. I was not. And I came from a relatively rich family, but I did not understand at the time why I had to grow in the temple. So I was different. Other boys looked at me differently, so I had to struggle to survive myself. And when I grew up, study in the primary and secondary school, I had to work along the way. And that's how I picked up my American accent. because I worked in American camps during the Vietnam War in many parts of Thailand. So that's become a critical component of I describe myself as part of a successful leader. You need to struggle to survive. And I learned it afterwards, after teaching so many classes in strategy, that many successful leaders in the world also have to struggle in many ways, in many, fashions.
Okay.
So that is very important.
You came out of university wanting to be a geologist and working in the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
But there were some challenges around that, because at that stage, Thailand wasn't really employing Thai
Right.
people in the oil and gas.
It was very funny. I graduated, bachelor's in geology. My grade, study grade was very outstanding, I would say. So I was offered many good jobs, in fact. But one of my professors said, "No, you need to go to work in oil and gas industry." It already started here in Thailand, but international oil and gas companies did not hire any local geologist, geoscientist, or engineer. So I had no choice. So I went to work as a laborer. I recall that, at the time, a lot of people were upset because I was an outstanding, graduate, but went to work as a laborer. But then that's the way I fought all the way, from below the surface up to the top. So after all those years, I started working as a laborer in the seismic crew, and then became a geologist for Shell, became a geologist for Exxon, Esso at the time, Esso Exploration in the Northeast, and then became a geologist for Phillips Petroleum altogether for 5 years before I joined Unocal. At that time, we called Union Oil, as a geologist. And then that was a time that I started the passion which I have today, and that is building new generations. I started to hire a lot of local geologists, geophysicists, and engineers, and Unocal became a very successful organization in Thailand. Not purely because of me, but partly, I would say.
And that I guess is demonstrating when you started your real leadership journey.
Yes.
And bringing those people in.
Yes.
How did you bring on people? Was some people easier to bring on in the leadership? Was some challenges with leading some people from others?
Of course.
I know I do.
Yeah, of course. We do have a recruitment program, so I had to work with university professors, in various professors in various universities here in Thailand. We also recruited from a neighbor country as well, but not that many compared to the local one, because that was my purpose. But the key successful one was not the recruitment, it's the role modeling. You need to behave, you need to act like a role model for them. I did not consider myself a successful leader at the time, not even today, but I had to, because they were following me. So you need to fight with professional geoscientists and engineers from overseas, expatriates when they move to Thailand. So we need to work, side by side with them. You need to behave like a professional, staff, working in the same culture. So being a role model for several years, that was part of the success story, I would say.
Okay. But was there a difference between, you mentioned expatriates, leading Thais and leading expatriates? Was there significant cultural differences, do you think?
Absolutely. Even among the expatriate society, there was some differences as well, because we do have what we call Unocal was American company, okay, out of California. So we do consider American workers as a first national company, European worker, Australian worker as a second, and Thai and ASEAN third country nationals. That's what our company policies were at the time. So different culture setting, that's one. But then again, working style was so different. I did not try to generalize the working culture, but we cannot avoid that. Okay, we cannot avoid that. And because the Thais are much less experienced at the time, so we need to grow them up. I was so lucky that I could communicate very well with American and European workforce, geoscientists and engineers, and ask them to help mentoring, the Thai staff. So we were lucky at the time. It was very beautiful. And because UNOCAL was considered at the time one of the largest operator or companies in Thailand, but in fact, in a global scale, it was not that big. It's about a medium size. So culturally, UNOCAL was set up to help mentoring local staff, not only in Thailand, but in other countries, including Indonesia and the Philippines. So we were lucky in a way.
Thailand came from a different, background. If you come out of when you were young, coming out of the Vietnam War, there was some significant struggles in a number of the neighbouring countries around here. Thailand probably had a little bit the opposite.
Yes, yeah, we were lucky in a way, and unlucky in the different way. Thailand was a very prosperous country compared to other ASEAN countries. Countries like, sorry to say, Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos in particular, they had to struggle to survive. Okay, Thailand was much more prosperous in a way, but because of that, there was a cultural setting that Thai people did not have to struggle, did not have to fight like them to survive. And that was part of the considerations for building a national competitiveness today. That's how we started to learn that, Vietnam has advanced so much, because they had to fight along the way in the last 50 years or so. That's part of the story. The way I look at in the energy industry, because I came from energy industry, it's similar in a way, because we are more prosperous before. It does not guarantee our success into the future. So we need to adjust the way I look at. And that's how I consider that to adjust myself as well, not just the industry.
Is Thailand adjusting? Is it adapting, do you think?
Yes, but not as fast and as good as I expected. I would say, can I explain something?
Yeah,
Elaborate
please.
something. Because Thailand is relying so much on oil and gas. Okay,
Right.
This country consumes about 1 million barrels a day, equivalent of oil and gas, of oil. Okay, but we can only supply 20% or so domestically. So we're relying on imported, and so we structure our manufacturing industry, society to use oil and gas for years. So once the world are moving away from fossil fuel, Thailand is in a unique position that we cannot move freely from oil and gas into renewable or cleaner energy right away. So we need an energy transition period. Okay, so when we look at, the way I look at it, first step, we do not have enough energy for the country. So we need to find more energy for the country first. And then we need to make the energy, oil and gas, to make them cleaner. There was technologies available today, okay? For example, like CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage, that's one of them. There are many other as well. And then once we can use that, make the oil and gas cleaner, then we need new innovative energy. For example, right now, China is very successful in exporting, electric vehicles, right? EVs is around the world. Electricity is one thing. People are talking about any other forms of innovative energy, for example, like SMR. SMR stands for Small Modular Reactor, which is a nuclear technology. The reason they consider it small is more successful because the large reactor create much more environmental load and contamination, radioactivities. So making it small enough for us to handle. Or we're moving to hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, or we're moving to fusion nuclear technology. For the last 50, 60 years or so, we use only a fission technology. That's one. But then on top of, having enough energy, make the energy cleaner, innovative technology, we need to have a real strategic, innovative energy policy, because that's a master one. Okay, the way I look at, sorry to say, Thailand is part of the emerging economies group, okay? And we have too many amateurs, I would say, not real professional experts in the energy policy. So it becomes try and error. But the country could not afford to live with try and error forever, all right? We used to have lots of reserves, petroleum reserves compared to production. So RP ratio equivalents to years that we have enough energy. We used to have more than 7 years, and now we have less than 1 year.
Really?
Yes.
One year.
So Thailand cannot survive, without importing energy. So we need a real professional people to drive what I call strategic, innovative energy policies, because that's a master plan.
So I guess, Dr. Kosit, this is where your leadership skills have really got to come to the fore, because we need someone to get us out of that trial and error, and someone to really lead.
Yes, and I was again lucky in the last many years. I was invited in many forums to provide some kind of advice, to policymakers, to dignitaries of this country. But again, as I mentioned earlier, was not that successful in a way compared to some of the advanced economies, like Western Europe or including the North America country, including the U.S. and Canada. But the major difference is that because, particularly in North America, because they do have lots of energy sources,
Yes.
so they can manage more effectively. Thailand is in a challenging position. If you ask me, I would compare Thailand to Japan. Japan is a country that having no oil and gas. They did not even have a drop of oil and gas, but they can manage it successfully, effectively over the last, nearly a century. That's a good example. But the way they survived, the way they were so successful, because they have the integrative network of working, not only from the public sector but also from the private sector. They had group of people working behind the scenes, which I think we can replicate that for Thailand. And in fact, I tried it many times before, was not that successful in this country.
Yeah, I think Japan's culture obviously is very different.
Yes,
They're
very much different.
very obedient,
Yes,
very
yes.
very good at following rules, which perhaps
Right.
here is where we're not so good at necessarily following the rules.
Well, I would say I don't describe it as good or bad, but the way I describe it as because it's a different societal setting, social setting in a way. I describe Thailand not that beautiful in terms of social integrity. In fact, Thailand is one of the emerging countries that they describe, the whole world sees it as a vulnerable society, because we have so much differences in many opinions. In fact, nearly all opinions in this country, ranging from energy policy, as I mentioned, or even a national welfare policy, down to the entertainment industry, to food stalls. We had so much different opinions everywhere, every day. I'm not that pessimistic. Okay, this is part of the journey. Every country, the way I look at, sorry to say, but my PhD is on a national competitiveness. Okay,
Yes.
The way I look at is every country needs to go through this journey, and that is to go through the fragmented, vulnerable society. The best way to unite or develop integrity for the society is education.
Okay.
But in Thailand, it was not that successful. Education system in Thailand has been deteriorated, I would describe, over the last many decades. We need to re-establish that.
How do we do that? Is it strong leadership at the top? Is it people? I mean, Thailand's basically had pretty anemic growth over the last 20 years.
Yes.
Certainly if you compare
Yes.
to the rest of
Yes.
of ASEAN and even
Yes.
the APAC region. does it need someone really strong on the tiller to take command and say,
Yes.
this is where we're going,
Yes.
and be able to perhaps bring about major change,
Okay.
which is going to cause perhaps some people
Yes.
think,
Yes. My opinion is this way. Before I give you an answer on that, let me give you a little bit of my background on two things. One is I'm teaching, okay? Right now, my passion is building the next generation. So I teach a lot of subjects. One of the most favorite subjects that people are expecting from me is strategy.
yes,
In order to move the strategy to become successful, you need to begin with the top, really. The other things that I like to mention, I'm also a certified ProScience. ProScience is an American company expertise in change management. Okay, in the change management process, you need a change agent, and that is from the top. So my two backgrounds indicating my answer, yes, we need from the top. In the last, for the last 30 or 40 years or so, 3 or 4 decades, Thailand was very successful because the society was not that fragmented. We have a real great leader, and that was His Majesty the King.
yes,
Okay, people have total faith in him. More, it's much higher than trust. Okay, so
indeed.
so that's how we grew. And if we want to grow again, I think we need to do that. We need to have a real trust, beginning from trust, developing into faith, so that we can rebuild the country. But that's part of the change agent. But we need to have a process. We need to have a strategy. So that strategy means the picture that everyone can visualize and understand the same thing and being aligned to the same direction. That's before we take any other measures. The way I look at all these political parties in Thailand, I'm sorry to talk about politics. In fact, I don't want to get involved with it. But the point
Hard
is,
to avoid that.
yes,
Doc.
it's hard to avoid, right? Especially after the U.S. election, okay?
Indeed.
Changing everything around the world. The point is, all the political parties, trying to come up with so many policies, measures, and activities, right? I mean, I truly believe everyone has good intention. But the point is, before you implement any policies or measures or activities, the most important one is the beginning point, and that is how to align the society to understand the same thing, seeing the same picture before we start walking together. And that's what we miss. One of the reasons why Japan was so successful for the last several decades, simply because they lost the war. So every Japanese, seeing the same thing, how to survive. South Korean has the same picture when they started to compete with Japan. Vietnam is having the same picture now because they want to become prosperous country like China. China has the same picture with South Korea. So these are general pattern if you study the national competitiveness, right? But Thailand is not. We need to re-establish that social, or what I call societal background. So everyone become a workforce of the same picture, the same vision, that we need to re-establish the society, which is much less fragmented, and then going in the same direction, being aligned and working together. I think that's very important.
Which comes back to leadership.
Yes, back to the leadership. As I mentioned, from a strategic point of view, from the change management point of view, leadership is a big issue.
And to get there, to get a society to be aligned, I think we've got some real challenges.
Of course. And that's not guarantee how long will it take, how much it could be successful. But I'm not that pessimistic. Let me give you another picture. Thailand is not the only country facing this situation, right? I mean, several countries
My own country, Australia,
yes,
is all over the place.
Sorry to say, New Zealand, another example, even the UK.
Yes.
Right? So it's part of the journey that every country has to go through, up and down, up and down, up and down. Yes.
We had a crisis in '97.
Yes.
in Thailand.
Yes.
I think there was a lot. We thought that, we'd get some strong leadership, and then sort of course coming into 2002, we had some reasonably strong leadership that might align us.
Yes.
Maybe the crisis wasn't. Often you need a crisis to come together, and maybe the crisis wasn't big enough.
Right. Right.
It was pretty big.
Yes. Every crisis comes with opportunities.
Yes.
The way I looked at, we cannot refuse the crisis, the Tom Yam Goong crisis in 1996, 1997. But the point is, it created a lot of lessons that we learned. And that's how I would say financial institutions in Thailand become much stronger, after that crisis. But the lessons learned, not widely or throughout the country. There's so many society groups and communities did not learn the same lessons. And that's how we repeated the same mistake. Okay, my point is, back to the change management. After the crisis, we have so many mistakes, so many lessons, but we did not use the lessons to educate enough, to educate the people throughout the country enough to understand it truly. So once similar mistakes happens, you will see a lot of technocrats and scholars coming out and trying to explain what happened in the past. And that's how we call it reinventing the wheel, right? So I would say I agree with Warren Buffett when he said, the next leaders should be an educator as well. We need to have a very knowledgeable leader in the future. And that's how my passion is today, is building next generation full of knowledge.
I'll give you a thought. You mentioned before about leadership and its nurturing and bringing on new talent, and I guess I'll put words in your mouth if you like, making the next generation better than you, trying to break them better. Is that potentially the problem with some of our leaders? Our leaders, are they there to drive the next generation coming through, or are they there more not about passing on their leadership skills, not about bringing on the next people, but looking after themselves? If you want to be very, very blunt.
Yes.
And is that potentially some of the problem?
Yes. My opinion is again twofold. The first fold is it's part of the culture as well. Here in Thailand, we have a lot of baby boomers and older generations keep saying, I learned it before. I'm much better than you. That's need to change. Okay, needs to be changed, because that's a paradigm shift. Okay, we used to have a joke in Thai culture, and younger generation keep saying that why the older people keep saying I took a bath with hot water before you, and they keep asking me that why you need a hot water to take a bath here in Thailand because the climate is so hot, right? That's one story. But the other one was exactly what you say. The younger generations may not want your model. They don't want that. They want to be, more independent. They want to be much less reliable and different mindset, different perception. Yes, those are challenges. But the way I look at it is that it's like being a leader. You need to give them all the lessons. They learn all the lessons, but they have freedom to make that choice, right? I mean, without lessons, they repeated the same mistakes.
They've got to respect their leaders.
Yes.
If you don't respect your leader, you're not going to follow that leader.
Exactly. And that's a definition. I really like Peter Drucker's definition.
Yes.
It's very simple. Leader is the one who have followers. That's all, right? So followers look up to the leader. So you need to behave, and that's why I said, at the beginning, my conclusion was you need to know where you're going, because the followers need to know where they're going as well, right? You need to have passion, because otherwise you give up. And then what about the followers? They give up. You need to be brave. Take a leap whenever it's necessary, because the followers will learn that as well. You need to reap from the profit from failures. That's how they learn. You need to be ethical, because the followers need to be ethical like you. You need to be generous. You need to be, empathizers. Because followers are following you, and you need to have a fighting experience because they are following you to have the same fighting experience. Otherwise, everyone gives up.
I was going to ask you for three main leadership lessons, but I think you came out with many more. But they're all very valuable. If you came back to one leader, whether someone you've worked with or someone you've seen as a leader, who would you look up to the most?
Oh, definitely. If there's only one, it must be the great King Raman IX. I think it took me several years to understand each and every word he said, each and every action he did. And it's so valuable, unbelievable. In the Thai society, some even called him, angels, God, because he was so great. He was so great. If you would allow me, he's definitely the one. But then, after him, after His Majesty, I would say not everyone is perfect. The way I learn, I picked up from several leaders and try to develop what's best, what suit me, okay? And I consider myself not good enough. In fact, I do my personal appraisal every month, at the month end, every month.
You do it yourself?
Yes, for the last, 30 years.
Wow.
I appraise, my work performance, my financial performance, my family performance, my health performance, blah, blah, blah. Every month's end, I do that because I truly believe in measuring, success, right? You need to have a target, you need to have a measurement. So I measure that every month, and then I look at it, and I have to say, I'm still very far, far away, very remote from being successful leader. Still a long way to go. But then I truly believe the next generation will have much higher chance to become successful more than me.
What do we have in place that's going to allow that?
In Chinese proverb, they said, once you are ready to learn, you will find your professors. You will find your teacher. The way I look at it as well. Thailand is education system, personal opinion, one of the failed attributes or factors of failure is that because we force them to learn. Students are not voluntarily learn. We force them to learn, and people don't like being forced. It's like when I said, there was a guru, strategic guru. I think Professor Rumel said as well, if you want to build a ship, you don't go to tell people, okay, bring along woods and equipment, blah, blah, blah. But you need to tell them, we need a journey overseas, right? You have direction, you have picture for them at the end. And then if they buy that idea, they trust you and they walk with you. And that's the way I see you need to have a clear picture of how the country would go in the next 5 years, 10 years. And you need to convince them this is the direction, this is why you need to go with us. And then the education will follow that pattern rather than force everyone to go to study, and then at the end, they still don't see their future. The major difference between study in Thailand and Western Europe, advanced economies, is that people in Western economies see themselves before they go to study. Here in Thailand, we don't see that. You study first, you finish your school, you finish your bachelor's, master's, or even PhD. You still don't know where you're going. A lot of people graduated in, for example, IT, information technology, but went to work in different other fields. Yeah. So you lose that productivity, you lose that capacity, national capacity to advance your economy. So we need that clear picture. That clear picture, that's how, several people defined the word vision, yeah. Right? And then people can follow you. So back to the top again, the change agent.
Change
leadership.
agent.
Yes.
Yeah, it surprises me that you think people are forced to learn. I mean,
Yes.
I've always believed in you never stop learning.
Exactly. Exactly.
My grandmother, even when she was 90, was still trying to learn.
Yes.
And told me that you can.
Me too. I'm still attending several classes myself, although I'm teaching classes as well. Because once you step into a learning experience, you find out that there is no end. There is no end. One of the big issues from the World Economic Forum. Can I say
Yes.
some minutes on this? That we just finished the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland recently. I think one of the big subjects they're talking about is Industrial Revolution 4.0.
Right.
We started with steam technology back in the 1700s, and then electricity in the 1800s, and computer technologies in the 1990s, and now we in the what they call the intelligence, right? Period. The intelligence comes with more advanced in computer technologies that we developed in the 1990s. That comprise, of course, first one is the AI, right? 3D printing, the RPA, robotic process automation, nanotechnology, quantum computing, blah, 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 blah. And that's it. So the way I look at this is a different world that we lived in for the last, at least at my age, for the last 60 something years, nearly 70 years, right? And everyone has to adjust. Without adjustment, you're becoming obsolete. And if you are obsolete, you have no chance to help your country develop into the future. So you need to follow. But following this, what they call intelligence industrial revolution, is not easy because it's totally different from the old history. The way I look at, you need to have a strategy first before you picking up technologies. Here in Thailand, there was a misperception. I would say, generally speaking, not everyone, but my general opinion is a lot of people in Thailand still pursuing or chasing technologies. Good example is your mobile phone. You have so many apps.
Yep.
Try to download all the apps, and then you call yourself, advanced in technology. In fact, it was not. To begin with, you need to have a strategy first. It's like business strategy. Before you're doing business, you need to have a business strategy. Before you're picking up technologies, you need to have a digital strategy. My advice?
Yes.
I am a fan. I'm a fan of Professor Gene Gross from MIT. Professor Ross described digital strategy as you need to have a model of what you want first. And she called it SMACIT, right? SMACIT. S stands for social. If you want to have technology, you need to have a direction, what you use for, how you connect with this society. So social platform, social media is very important. That's the first one, S. The second one, M, stands for mobile, because all these people will connect with your technology through mobile devices, right? A stands for analytics. And here comes the machine learning and AI. Because you need tremendous amount of data, you need statistical analysis so that you can come up with solutions on whatever you want to, as your value proposition to your customers. That's SMA. C stands for cloud, because you cannot carry all the data together everywhere. Mm-hmm. So you need cloud technology to carry all your data worldwide. And the last one, IT, stands for Internet of Things, because that's a way that people connecting to each other. So the way I look at it's very important, because without this model, you keep chasing technology, you will find out that you have to change it again and again and again, right? If you have this model and then you draft it on a piece of paper that, okay, I want to build a new mobile phone. That's my technology, right? So I need to sell that my mobile phone. I need to connect with the social, the first one, S, through platform, maybe on Facebook, maybe on X, or maybe on so many platforms. And then people will find my product through their mobile device, right? And then I have data doing analysis through the analytic models, maybe AI, describing that my mobile phone is much more advanced than any other telephone, and then it's much cheaper. Right, and then my mobile phone can carry a lot of data, much more than any other in my own cloud technology, and people can come in with through connecting with me through their internets.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
Right.
So you need to have that model first before you pick up the technologies. But generally speaking, here in Thailand, most people keep chasing technology first. So they ended up by changing technologies.
Yes. I don't know what they're using it for.
Exactly.
It's interesting. We're probably getting to the end, but if you look at productivity of businesses as they've brought in technology, most businesses' productivity has gone down.
Yes, surprising.
And they bring in.
Surprising.
So all these wonderful pieces of technology.
Can I share with you another story I learned many years ago?
Yeah.
I believe that this company no longer exists, so I can mention its name.
Okay.
Right? It's the Arthur Anderson, right? I think there was a ranch, a horse ranch in Montana, if I recall. They have thousands of horses, right? And then they do their business was a ranch, and their productivity went down. So they went to see Arthur Anderson and say, hey, how can we increase the productivity? And Arthur Anderson said, oh, because you're cowboys, right? Do not talk to each other because they did not have communication. So what to do? Oh, give them the mobile phone so they can communicate, right? So they communicate. So the first year productivity went up for 3 years and then dropped drastically. And so they brought in Arthur Anderson, and Arthur Anderson said, because they're talking too much, you need to
Take the mobile phones away.
So put it that way, yes. So the point is, you need to be clear on what you're doing, and I teach strategy, okay? I always said that people misperceive about strategy because we do it once a year, for listed companies in the stock market, because you need to make announcement of your strategic direction to your shareholders once a year. And then people thought strategy is a kind of a once a year activity. In fact, it is not, totally not. Strategy is every day's job. Right. You need to keep track. You need to measure it every day. You need to adjust every day. So it is more than a full-time job.
Maybe I need to bring back your monthly assessments to daily assessments. Look, it's been fascinating talking to you. We could sit here for another few hours, I think. But look, thank you so much for your insights. One last word, if you had one last word to leaders about how to be a leader in this rapidly changing world, what would be the one word?
Never stop learning.
Love it.
Never stop learning, because leadership is about the process to build the next leader. It's an ongoing process. It never stops. Whenever you stop learning, whenever you think that you know everything, that's the end of the day.
Probably end of your life.
End of your life, yes.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's been fascinating.
That's my honor.
Hopefully we can have you back again sometime.
Hopefully I don't upset you too much.
You never will. Dr. Kosit, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.